When you think of the greatest baseball players of all time, one name inevitably comes up alongside legends like Babe Ruth and Willie Mays. But unlike those revered figures, this player's legacy remains deeply divided. Barry Bonds holds more offensive records than perhaps any player in history, yet he's been excluded from the Hall of Fame. How did one of the most talented athletes ever to play the game become so controversial that his achievements are overshadowed by his reputation? Barry Bonds wasn't just good at baseball, he was historically great. He holds the all-time record for home runs with 762, more than any player who ever lived, showing that pitchers feared him so much they often refused to pitch to him. He's the only player ever to join both the 500 home run and 500 stolen base clubs, proving he wasn't just a power hitter but also incredibly fast. Add to that 7 MVP awards and 8 Gold Glove awards, and you have what many consider the greatest hitter who ever played the game. But Bonds' story isn't just about numbers. From the very beginning of his career, he developed a reputation that would follow him throughout his life. Even in college at Arizona State, where he was clearly the best player on the team, his coach described him as difficult to work with. His teammates became so frustrated with his behavior that they actually voted to kick him off the team, despite knowing he was their most talented player. This pattern continued into his professional career. When he played for the Pittsburgh Pirates early in his career, he won 2 MVP awards and helped bring fans back to a struggling team. Yet reporters and fans never warmed to him. Even his own front office was willing to trade him away, and only his manager's strong opposition stopped the deal. If you're enjoying learning about this fascinating story, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about Bonds' early reputation issues. Was it fair for his college teammates to want him off the team? Bonds later explained his approach in interviews, admitting he wasn't the best teammate. He said he refused to share his hitting secrets with other players because he viewed baseball as a business. In his mind, a teammate could be traded to a rival team at any time, so why help someone who might later compete against him? While this logic might make business sense, it created exactly the isolation he would later complain about. When Bonds joined the San Francisco Giants, his most famous conflict erupted with teammate Jeff Kent. Both players had difficult personalities, but their feud became legendary. Kent was known as someone who took baseball traditions very seriously, while Bonds was seen as someone who ignored team norms. It spilled into public view during a dugout fight in 2002 that was caught on camera. Interestingly, the fight started when Bonds defended another teammate who Kent was criticizing. Yet the media didn't portray Bonds as a hero standing up for someone. Instead, they framed it as a clash between 2 difficult personalities. This shows how Bonds' reputation colored even his positive actions. When someone has a certain image, people interpret everything through that lens. The feud included bizarre incidents like arguments over bus seating arrangements and Kent's motorcycle accidents that violated his contract. Despite all this drama, both players performed incredibly well on the field, helping the Giants reach the World Series in 2002. Bonds' isolation from his teammates was even visible in the clubhouse. He set up his locker space with 4 lockers, an oversized recliner, a television, and his own staff. This created a physical barrier between him and the rest of the team, reinforcing his image as someone who saw himself as separate and above others. His relationship with the media was equally confrontational. Bonds openly showed disdain for reporters, accusing them of lying about him and comparing their coverage to old television reruns. He tried to deflect attention from his controversies by pointing to more serious issues like natural disasters, but his tone often came across as arrogant rather than genuinely concerned about social problems. This confrontational approach backfired. Instead of defending himself effectively, his hostility toward the press became part of the story itself. His visible contempt for media scrutiny shaped the narrative more than any defense he could have offered. Then came the steroid scandal that would define the final chapter of his career. The Balco investigation led to Bonds being indicted on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice in 2007. While he was later cleared on appeal in 2015, the legal battle moved public opinion from mere dislike to moral judgment. The scandal provided concrete justification for feelings many people already had about Bonds. His perceived arrogance suddenly had a specific reason attached to it. The dramatic physical changes he underwent in the later years of his career, his much larger body size, which was visible to everyone watching, could now be attributed to alleged steroid use. This created what the analysis calls a perfect feedback loop. His difficult personality made him an easy target for scrutiny, and the steroid allegations seemed to confirm people's worst suspicions about his character. The scandal didn't create the negative feelings, but it gave people a concrete reason to justify opinions they had already formed. However, it's important to note that Bonds' treatment wasn't necessarily consistent with how other players were handled. When Mark McGwire's steroid use was revealed, many people defended him by saying steroids weren't banned in baseball at the time. George Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, was a convicted felon but faced little media outrage. Hall of Fame pitcher Gaylord Perry openly admitted to cheating by doctoring baseballs but was almost praised for his cleverness. Some observers argue this difference in treatment suggests racial bias may have influenced how Bonds was judged compared to white players who had similar or even worse transgressions. Bonds' personal life also became public in damaging ways. His divorce involved allegations of domestic abuse, though police found no physical evidence to support the claims. His ex-girlfriend's testimony in the Balco case painted a picture of someone who became increasingly aggressive during the period when he allegedly used steroids, though the defense argued she was motivated by revenge after their relationship ended. The Hall of Fame question brings all these issues together. The voting rules include a character clause that tells voters to consider integrity and sportsmanship alongside on-field performance. Bonds fell short of the required 75% of votes, maxing out at 66% in his final year of eligibility. The voters split into different groups with different philosophies. Some refused to vote for any player connected to steroids. Others draw distinctions between players with definitive evidence versus those with only rumors. A smaller group argues that Bonds' pre-steroid career alone was worthy of the Hall of Fame. But a deeper look suggests that Bonds' personality and media relationships played a crucial role in his exclusion. Writers who vote for the Hall of Fame are the same people he had hostile relationships with throughout his career. His difficult reputation made him an easy target for voters who wanted to make a statement about character in baseball. What makes this complex is that Bonds wasn't entirely one-dimensional. Some former players have defended him publicly. He's been involved in charitable work, including supporting children's hospitals and running baseball camps for young players. These positive aspects of his character received much less attention than his controversies. So what should we make of Barry Bonds' legacy? His case represents a unique combination of extraordinary talent, personal conflicts, legal troubles, and public relations disasters. Unlike players who faced single scandals, Bonds' controversies reinforced each other across his entire career. His exclusion from the Hall of Fame isn't simply about steroids or simply about personality. It's about how these factors combined with media coverage and public perception to create a narrative that overshadowed even his historic achievements. The debate over Bonds reflects broader questions about how we judge public figures. Should performance be the only measure that matters? How much should personal character influence how we remember athletic greatness? Is it possible to separate the person from their accomplishments? Bonds supporters point to his incredible statistics and argue that many steroid users from his era are already in the Hall of Fame, making him a scapegoat. They also note the achievements of his pre-steroid years, which alone might warrant Hall of Fame consideration. His critics see him as someone whose talent couldn't overcome fundamental character flaws, a player who alienated teammates, fought with media, and allegedly cheated to enhance his performance. What's your take on this complex legacy? Should the Hall of Fame be about pure performance, or does character matter too? Leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into sports history's most fascinating figures. Perhaps the most honest assessment is that Barry Bonds represents the complexity of human nature itself. He was simultaneously one of baseball's greatest talents and one of its most difficult personalities. His story serves as a reminder that greatness in one area doesn't guarantee greatness in all areas, and that how we handle success and adversity shapes how we're remembered just as much as our achievements do. Bonds' legacy will likely remain unresolved, which might be fitting for someone whose career defied simple categorization. He holds records that may never be broken, yet he's excluded from his sport's most prestigious honor. He was capable of acts of generosity and mentorship, yet he alienated many of those closest to him. He achieved statistical greatness that speaks for itself, yet his reputation suggests that numbers alone don't tell the complete story of who someone is or how they should be remembered. The impact of Bonds' exclusion from the Hall of Fame extends beyond his personal legacy to broader questions about baseball's relationship with its own history. The steroid era, roughly spanning the 1990s and early 2000s, saw offensive numbers reach historic heights. Many players from this period have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, despite operating in the same environment where performance-enhancing drugs were widely available and poorly regulated. This selective enforcement of moral standards raises uncomfortable questions about consistency and fairness. If the Hall of Fame is meant to represent the best players from each era, excluding the most dominant hitter of the steroid era, while including others seems contradictory. Yet, if character matters equally to performance, then voters must grapple with where to draw lines and how to weigh different types of misconduct. Bonds' story also reflects the changing nature of sports media and fan expectations. Earlier generations of players often had their personal flaws overlooked or downplayed by a more deferential press corps. Babe Ruth's drinking and womanizing were well known but rarely emphasized in coverage. By Bonds' era, sports journalism had become more aggressive and investigative, with 24-hour news cycles demanding constant content. The racial dynamics of Bonds' treatment can't be ignored when examining his legacy. Baseball has a complicated history with race, and some observers argue that black players have faced higher standards for character and behavior than their white counterparts. Whether conscious or unconscious, these biases may have influenced how Bonds was covered and ultimately judged. Looking at Bonds' impact on the game itself, his dominance forced strategic changes that remain visible today. Teams began employing extreme defensive shifts against pull hitters, a practice that became commonplace throughout baseball. His ability to work counts and draw walks influenced how hitting coaches teach plate discipline. His training methods, controversial as they may have been, contributed to the modern emphasis on year-round conditioning and nutrition. From a purely baseball perspective, Bonds' later career years represent some of the most remarkable offensive performances ever recorded. His 2001 and 2004 peak, when he won 4 consecutive MVP awards, defied statistical logic. His 2004 season, when he was intentionally walked 120 times, showed just how much opposing teams feared putting the ball anywhere near the strike zone when he was batting. In the end, Barry Bonds' career serves as one of sports history's most compelling case studies in the relationship between talent and character, achievement and legacy, and the complex ways that public perception shapes how we remember our heroes and villains.